It's a very great pleasure to see so many people in the room tonight to celebrate yet another Lancaster Exchange. The university has achieved a great deal in the last year, and the Vice-Chancellor will say more about that in a moment. We continue to perform very well across national and international league tables and those who assess the standard and quality. But we never forget that we're locally rooted. It's Lancaster University, and that means a lot to the university, and we hope it means a lot to you. And I suppose that was never demonstrated more ably than in the success just a few weeks ago with the Eden Project coming to the area, something in which everyone has played a part for so many years, it seems, in so many different ways. But the strength of community was demonstrated in the campaign for that, the ability to put forward a case of why this would be important here. And the university was very proud to play a part in relation to that. It links in very well with the theme of the evening, which I think you've probably picked up and been aware of. It's sustainability, how we can tackle the climate emergency to build a sustainable future together. And the importance of the topic, if it needed to be emphasized any further, where, of course, was mentioned earlier this week in the latest UN report, reminding all of us of the risks and the challenges. And one of the presentations at the back from Maggie Cawthron you'll be able to see is how global warming and how rising sea levels affect us here locally. This is not, as we all know in this room, something that happens somewhere else, but it's something that affects all of us. So that's the theme. There's going to be a talk and discussion and engagement in relation to that. But the first part of the evening for me is to introduce our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Andy Schofield, who is going to provide an update on the university's key challenges and achievements from the last year, and then lead us into what will be the big conversation later on in the evening. So please take a full part, enjoy the evening, engage as we will wish to engage with you. But for the first part, can I introduce our Vice-Chancellor, Andy Schofield.
Well, a very good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for coming and giving us your time to come and engage with the university. It's a great privilege, not just to lead Lancaster University, but to be a part of Lancaster community. And that's why an event like today, I think, is so important to us. We recognise that we have a part to play as an employer, as an educator, doing research, but we are a part of the community too, and which is why opening up what we do and engaging with the community to decide how we do things and to be advised by you is a really important part of our activity and our wider engagement. So thank you for giving us your time. The big conversation is the second part of the event, and as Alistair has said, my job is to give you a little bit of an update. Some of you may have been with us a year ago when we last did this. For others of you, this may be the first time that you've had the opportunity to hear some of the things that we do as a university. We think of three core activities of what we do. We call them the pillars, and if you look, and you can see our strategy on the website, the three aims and areas of activity that we work hard in are our research, the education that we provide, and the engagement, which is actually bringing all of that together to make a real impact in the world. And over the next few slides, I'm going to talk about a number of aspects of our research, of the education, the quality of the education that our students get at Lancaster, and some of the ways that the engagement of that is making a real difference. On the research front, let me just highlight one thing that's happened in the last year, which is we've been evaluated, and that's something that happens nationally, a census that happens basically every 7 years of every university and every department within that university. And the outcome of the last assessment was published in May of last year. And I am incredibly proud that Lancaster did exceptionally well in that, revealing that our research really is at the cutting edge, not just of national effort, but international effort. 91% of our research is world-leading and internationally significant. And there's a real significant element about what we do. And while many people think of a university as educating students, and that of course is core to our being, that parallel activity of research ensures that our students are learning in an environment where we are creating new knowledge, vital for a generation of new learners for whom they are going to go out into the workplace, make lives and careers, where the answers to the questions that they will face are not found in today's textbooks. They will have to make that knowledge and those solutions themselves, which is why educating in a spirit and an environment where active research is taking place is so important to us as a university. And out of that assessment of our research, not only was its quality revealed to be so strong, but also the depth of what we do. And a statistic which I'm particularly proud of is the research intensity that you get at Lancaster. And what that really means is, what's the probability that a student studying with us meets a world leader in their field? And we're third in the country for that. We are beaten by Oxford and Cambridge, and we are equal with Imperial in London, but I think it's a real source of great pride to us that all of our researchers are operating at such high level. It's really important to us, has real importance to our students, but I think it also animates the way in which we can engage in some of those global challenges, which is why this event, looking at sustainability and asking you to kind of help us think it through and to partner with us, is so important. So, our research is world leading. So too is our education, and I will touch on education next. If Abby, we can move to the next slide. I will tell you something about the numbers of students that we bring to Lancaster. We're roughly just under 17,000 students are studying with us on the Balerig site, just to the south of where we are now. It's a mix of home students and international students, students that are taking their first degree, or students that are studying for their second or higher degree, postgraduate students. And I know that many of the questions come from our community asking, what is the sort of growth plan? How does the university think in terms of its scale? And our growth plans are relatively modest, probably around 5% per year. But the balance of what we're trying to do and thinking where the opportunities for growth, and in particular, how we're going to sustain ourselves into the future, bearing in mind that the fee that our home students pay has not changed essentially since 2012. That puts quite a big constraint on how we operate. And some of that constraint is lifted by being able to charge market prices for our international students and thinking through postgraduate. So what we're trying to do is to be sustainable, to grow within reasonable bounds, but also to be hugely relevant in what we do. And one of the ways in which our research animates our teaching is not just at undergraduate level, but at postgraduate level too. And there are opportunities there for students to come from all over the world to study with us. And I think that does touch on the international landscape, which I will come to later. But our mix of students is roughly 2/3 home students, UK students, and 1/3 international students. In fact, in terms of our income, though, it's about a 50-50 mix between those two areas. And if there was one area we were going to grow more of, it probably is in that postgraduate area. So those are our student numbers. Growth relatively modest, and we are in close communication with the city and the city council around expectations around how many students we're going to need to accommodate in the future. Interestingly, though, Lancaster has the highest, I think the highest proportion of student accommodation relative to the total number of students, and they're located on the Balerig site. So we're particularly proud of the accommodation that we offer, and it typically is prize winning every year, which is great. And our education is also recognised by our league table position. We are in the top 15 of all UK universities in the country. It's a position we are very proud of, but it's also one that we would like to be yet better still. And looking particularly at our metrics of student satisfaction and how we can improve that, we're already best in the northwest. We're very high up in the UK tables, but it's really important to us that our students not only get a world-class education, but have an experience that goes alongside it that supports them in their career and life ambitions beyond. We're award-winning in other respects too. Our library is really second to none. And I say that without qualification because it won this year a Times Higher Education Award for being the outstanding library in the country. And one of the great things about Lancaster's library is that it's not just for students and staff, it is open to the community. And we introduced a library community card, which allows anybody to come and use our library services for free and to benefit from the thing that our students and staff enjoy, one of the things that they enjoy most about being on the campus. It's also a great place for putting on exhibitions, and we were lucky enough to celebrate a number of things. In particular, a community project which a number of our staff and some school children through the area worked on and then displayed in the museum here, and has also hosted activity on the campus, and that's around slavery family trees. It's part of a community project, and it ran alongside the Black History Community Group. Students, schools, volunteers took part. It was great, a real showpiece of what we do. And while I've talked about our league table position domestically, we're also equally proud of our international league table position. We now sit at 122nd in the world, for universities, and that's as high as we've ever been. It's a fantastic achievement that I'm very proud of, and I think as a community we can be proud of too. And we don't stand still. Over the past year, we've invested in a number of university areas, in particular, one which is trying to focus a cyber corridor to come to this part of the Northwest. We've got partnerships in Manchester. We're working closely with the National Cyber Force as it sets up a base in Samlesbury. But we see that route up the M6 as a place where cyber innovation will take place, with Lancaster playing its leading part in the research that we do and in the education that we do, and we believe will bring businesses, new facilities, and new people to this part of the world. I've talked a bit about Bailrig and the student community that we have there, but there is perhaps from the Bailrig perspective a hidden but very significant group of our students that you don't see here in Lancaster, but are partnering with us in teaching partnerships and research partnerships right around the world. So while there are just under 17,000 students, as I've said, in Lancaster, there are a further 8,500 students that are studying for Lancaster University degrees all around the world, and some not so far away, in Blackpool and the Fylde, also in Blackburn, working with FE partners there to provide higher education accredited by Lancaster. And what you see in this slide is actually the areas and the colours represent the numbers of students. Sunway, which, if you can see it, is one of the larger blocks, is a partnership in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. And I was lucky enough to be there just a couple of weeks ago, graduating another cohort of students. The great thing about those students is, while they have not yet been to Lancaster for the most part, they are tremendously proud of Lancaster as a university and proud of their association with it. And that's great as we think into the future of the impact that this city is going to have on the world. We've already got people who are looking forward to coming here at some point in their lives, perhaps as tourists, maybe to set up businesses, but they're also there sitting, waiting to engage back as proud alumni of Lancaster University, and ready to engage with the business community who might want to do work overseas. That's true in Sunway, in Malaysia. We've got similar activity taking place in China with Beijing Jiaotong University. We've got activity in Ghana, most recently in Leipzig. And one of our most innovative new activities is University Academy 92 in faraway Manchester, where we've set up a teaching program there, which is attracting students who wouldn't normally think about going to university, and is opening the doors of a Lancaster degree to them in partnership with the class of 92 Manchester United former football players. So here is our kind of global footprint right around the world. It's a vision that goes from Lancaster right through to China, Malaysia, and beyond. One of the things we do with those global footprints is not just teach, but we do research. And as I've said about our Lancaster students being educated in a research environment, that's also true of our overseas students. And we bring all of those students together in a research conference each year. And it's an example of where that multicultural aspect of Lancaster University is put into practice, where we have a research conference that is run by students, it's run for students, and people talk about the research that they've done as part of their undergraduate studies and then communicate it to their peers right around the world. It mirrors what will happen at more professional research conferences. Indeed, it is really cutting-edge science and creative arts that is actually talked about there, and it's done in a way that brings to bear the wisdom of people coming from very different backgrounds and bringing them together. And I think it's also reflecting well on this city that we're seen as the host of that. I've talked about the importance and significance of the research that we do, and there's so much that I could draw on, from particle physics to business studies. But I just wanted to pick up a couple of things, of projects that are coming to fruition as we speak. A number of you may have been involved in a citizen science project, the Big Windermere Survey, looking at water quality. And of course, that's a hugely topical area for us right now, but looking very directly with data that the community is gathering. We've just done the second annual survey, and we've just published the results of that. And what we're trying to do is to work out whether there are interventions that we can do that will improve the condition of the water in Windermere. Each unique project, very different context, is looking at the unique signatures that hands have. And that's being used to create a database of hand images, and the analysis and interpretation that goes into that is going to feed back into the National Crime Agency and how we might use that technology to identify criminals and bring them to prosecution. We're also, our researchers are making a difference in people's lives through the family courts. We're doing extensive work there in how struggling families might be supported so that children don't need to go into care, and to break that cycle of dependency, trauma, and students and children being taken away from families. Our medics are working on palliative care, trying to make end-of-life care at the very frontier of pain management and supporting both the dying and their families. And again, just to pick the diversity of what we do, we have some of the world leaders in research on coral, and protecting the coral and other key ecosystems is a fantastic bit of work that's being done out of the Lancaster Environment Centre. And that's just a snapshot of some of the research that is taking place right now. We also see playing our part working with our communities to support a range of cultural activities that take place. And you may have benefited from that already, whether it's some of the things we're doing for Light Up Lancaster, for Pride, also doing things around, for example, the Chinese New Year, where some of our former graduates set up a fantastic activity in the city centre that I know a number of you were there. The library card I've talked about already, but we're so happy to work in partnership with Lancaster Arts, with the Dukes, and we're also hosting a number of really important cultural collections and giving public lectures. Dan Snow was here the other day when he wasn't hunting down pieces of shark, and gave a wonderful introduction and lecture here. We had Bill Phillips, a physicist and Nobel laureate, give one of the most entertaining lectures I think people can remember in a long time. Lots of things that we would like the community to engage with, and if there are other ideas that people have of things that we could be doing more of, we're very happy to hear it in that conversation. And also we're partnering in terms of innovation, and Alistair has talked already a little bit about the Eden Project Morecambe. Very happy and proud of that connection there and the success recently that government has seen. And it's great to have Eden partners with us. And we're expanding beyond the Eden Project Morecambe itself, thinking around Morecambe Bay curriculum, an innovative education curriculum, place-based sustainability at its core, where we're trying to inspire a new generation of people to take sustainability seriously, and at the same time develop their learning through a project-based activity. Cyber I've already talked about, but we are putting a very significant investment into cyber. But how do we make this world secure from cyber attack? How do we make it resilient? And many features of that cyber resilience go through to how people interact with technology, how the legislative framework allows us to secure things, through to how data science and skills will come together to make the next generation of people that are cyber literate and at the front end of cyber security. And we continue to do work on health. When I spoke a couple of years ago, we were just opening the Health Innovation Campus for vaccines. Actually, I think the last time I was in the town hall was getting a vaccine here. I didn't get a vaccine at the Health Innovation Campus, sadly for me, but I came down here, which was just as good, but I'd never been in this building before apart from that, so I was remembering that. But we're actually supporting more than 250 small and medium-sized enterprises through our business innovation programs, supporting people learning from our engagement, and that becomes part of our research activity, but working closely with those communities. You're going to hear some of the things that I've already talked about later, and very proud of our connections with Blackpool Council. And Tony, it's great to have you here as another one of our collaborative research projects. Morecambe Bay curriculum, you'll be able to have a look at on the stand, and Eden and the funding there. We're really proud to be part of that. Let me tell you a little bit about our funding. By far the most significant part of our funding does come from the fees that our students pay us. But it's really important to realise that pretty much every penny that we get as a university has to be competitively won. Our tuition fee is won in the very competitive market of universities, each of which are appealing to the student body to come there to study, which is why it's so important to us to be riding up those league tables, demonstrating not just good value for money, but that what we produce at the end is a quality of graduate that is second to none and is attractive for employers, as well as setting people up for their lives beyond university. The other income bit is mainly around some of our student residences. Most of our student residences on campus are managed by UPP, so that's money in and then money straight out to them. And then a significant part we win for our research. And so the funding we get for our research, the quality of the research that we do features in that, but also the project ideas that we have. And so that pretty much is our picture and our spread of income. And we are growing in scale. We're also growing in the resource that we have. The reason the money is going up, though, is because every year we have to do more to stand still, in part because of the static student fee for home undergraduates. But the challenging environment that we find ourselves in for this current year in terms of costs associated with cost of living and inflationary rises, these are the things that we're having to mitigate. But the financial health of the university is pretty strong. We're confident going forward, and we're a not-for-profit organisation, so every penny we have is then reinvested in the university, reinvested in people, reinvested in ensuring that our estate is at the cutting edge, and reinvested in some of the ideas that we're trying to support. There have been changes, there have been challenges. The inflationary pressures I've talked about. Some of the things that we've been really good at winning are now no longer available to us. Some of the European structural funds associated with the ability that we've had to support small businesses, that stream comes to an end this year, which is having quite difficult consequences for us as a university. But with every door that shuts, we're trying to find doors that we can open. And again, the cyber force and areas of strategic growth remain important to us. But that then takes us to the topic of today's big conversation, which is our ambition and our commitment to sustainability. We quite boldly have accelerated the government's targets for reaching carbon net zero by, in some cases, a decade. And we've committed to reaching carbon net zero for the emissions that we make through heating and through heating or indirectly through electricity to get to carbon net zero by 2030. That's quite a big challenge for us. You will, I'm sure, know of the wind turbine that we have, which is making a very significant difference to our generation of sustainable energy, but we need to do more. We do have planning permission for a photovoltaic farm, and the logistics of bringing that to fruition is something we're working through. We would dearly like another wind turbine too, but there is a route to getting to carbon net zero from what is called scope 1 and 2 emissions. The really big challenge for us is how do we go beyond that to reach net zero from all of the other indirect emissions. In particular, the supply chains that supply all of the facilities that we have, the building work that we do, and of course the travel of staff and students to the campus. These are things that it's much harder to fix in terms of reducing our carbon impact and getting that to zero. We've committed it to do so by 2035. If you honestly ask me how I know how we're going to do it, I think that is still a very big and open question, and I think there's some quite big societal changes that will need to take place in order for us to achieve it. But we felt that if we didn't set ourselves the target, there was a risk that we would let others do that thinking for us. And so, again, an important part of this conversation and dialogue today is to think through some of those larger scale and major challenges that we face as a society. We have made some progress. I am pleased to say that in the world rankings around sustainability, these rankings do come thick and fast, but we are 26th in the world, but I don't think any of us feel we're anywhere near where we need to be, and that's the important point of this conversation and how we move to next. So, thank you for your attention. Thank you for indulging me in boasting with some pride at what my colleagues are doing to make Lancaster University really one of the best universities, not just in the Northwest, not just in the country, but in the world. And by doing so, I think we bring attention to this part of the Northwest, and we do so for the benefit of all. But we can only do it if we're working in partnership.